Wiggle culture here. It's a nice, almost 70-degree day in late March here in central Virginia. I was tilling the beds here. Here's the follow-up to that. I just raked all my tilled soil into my beds. That's kind of a one-time deal using the tiller. I tell you, it saved a ton of labor. It's well worth doing it this way. It would have taken so long to shovel that and chop it with the hoe and then shape it. It was a breeze with that. I mean, it's still hard work, but just not the level of work it would have been otherwise. So I definitely recommend it, tiller. These are somewhat along the idea of a keyhole. The big ditch behind is on contour, and all these little ditches are running even with contour. So the water is going to come down the driveway here, and I might have to shape it a little bit to get that water flowing into those beds. And to realize there's not really an outlet, so I'm not going to try to divert much water in there. I'm thinking it'll mostly soak in. I'm not sure I'll have a flooding problem up this high on the hill, so I'm hoping for good results with just catching the water and seeping it in. On that first bed there, you see where I put that hay in. So you see how the beds are kind of a little bit sharp on the sides, the angle. That's obviously just going to collapse. But I really pack that hay in there. I don't skimp on the hay. I get that landscape hay and just fill it up, stomp it down, and make sure it's in there really well. Now I'm going to stop the weeds. I'm going to catch the water. Really slow it down. That water will fill in the hay areas really well. And cut my weeding issues in half, because half the garden is walkways. And I don't have to weed that anymore at all with all that hay down. So I just have to work on the beds. So I'm going to continue the same process up the hill there. And back on the other side of the little hoop houses there. I'm going to leave that same mound right there that's worked in. Right there where that tiller is where the mound kind of starts. See where this little persimmon tree is? Got that white barrel. We're going to put a bench right there. That'll be my walkway, main walkway, and that's where that mound starts. I'll leave the mound with the trees, leave that part, I'll rototill the rest, and then do the same kind of keyhole beds. I'm not sure what to call them. They're not truly keyhole beds, but they're kind of along the lines. They're halfway there. And up there is going to be a mess at the top. I'm also going to till rows along the outside of the garden fence. Put in like potatoes and more of a staple crop type idea. Kind of take advantage of some of that fertility that I have just washing down the hill. Maybe stop some of that, catch it in some little mounds. All the way down the whole length of this thing. This is yesterday. I tilled up this stuff and made it into that stuff. And when it's dried out, I'll chop it up a little finer. But this is mostly, I think I'm just going to put comfrey in here. I'll probably sow in some just field peas, just for grazing. I'm not going to really fence it off or anything. I'll just have the animals come out here and just eat at the comfrey every time it's tall enough. And the peas will just help bring in some of the nitrifying. We'll just see what we get. This might eventually all be gardens, but for now I'm just trying to increase the fertility on this old Virginia red clay out here. You can see it right there. So I'm going to try to just get it where we can't even see clay at all. Start catching some solar energy and turn it into plant matter and turning it into animal matter. I'm going to check back in with you in a little bit. I wanted to show you the benefits of having this Chinese cabbage or Chinese mustard. Overwintered it. Didn't really harvest a whole lot of it. We got some out of there. But just let it go to seed. Let it bolt like this and just look at the insect life here. The bees are loving it. I haven't seen any honeybees yet, but I've seen a lot of native pollinators. They're out and among us today. And encouraging them to get around here is going to help me get all my early varieties of fruit trees. Most of my fruit trees are the earliest variety you can get. When they're budding like this, you get these pollinators hanging out, and you're going to have a lot better fruit set. So we're hoping for some good work done. So I just wanted to share that with you. Here's a little bit closer perspective on where I'm going to be tilling and adding in more beds. Kind of see the shape already. I do have a little kale in there. I'm going to transplant it. That was just seeds I kind of tossed out. I'm just going to chop up the turnips. I don't really care too much about them. We have plenty of those. I think those onions and garlic will be out of the way well enough. So most of this is just going to get tilled and made into those beds like that. I'm going to take that path out. So this path here will be the main path, and all those other perpendicular beds, perpendicular to the grade, just like this. I want to show you this tool. This is the thing you've got to have. It's got a heavy tine, deep tine rake. I don't know exactly what you call it. I just call it a bow rake. But this is the main tool I use among everything when I'm working with hay, working with wood chips, working with the soil. It gets the job done. Doesn't get all clogged up like those short tine rakes. So all this will get hayed in with that hay up there, and I'm gonna go ahead and get some seeds in the ground today. This has not been final raked. It's been raked with this. So I will get a finer stiff rake, shorter stiff rake, and rake these beds out and clean them out. We did get a few rocks that we pulled up, so I'll clean that up. When I was tilling, I did not really disturb the subsoil much. I know using the tiller and saying you're doing permaculture is madness, but there is no machine that is more accessible for the price to most people. The amount of work that does, I highly recommend it. I'm not talking about those little tiny things. I'm talking about something substantial, and you need that reverse. You can have the tines go forward or reverse. Man, that is one handy thing. And a trick I figured out is to pull that pin out. I figured it out by losing the pin that sets the adjustment, and just letting it kind of free float. And when you're using that thing, put it in reverse and you walk it forward a little bit, and you just push down and let that machine just dig until you start hitting that hard subsoil, or what is actually the actual soil here. But it'll start bouncing. You can tell you've gotten deep, so I just stop. I just don't disturb that. And that's what I did with this. And it takes a while. I learned how to use the reverse on the thing. It made life a lot easier. So I mostly did reverse tilling. It goes opposite of the drive wheels. But when you're trying to get somewhere, you put that sucker spinning the same way as the wheels, and it pulls you along pretty nice. So I highly recommend a tiller. $800, to $1,000 these days. Get one of those ones in that range, and it'll do the work for you, and it will save your back. I did this in like probably an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. I wasn't really timing it, kind of taking it easy. Not that bad. I've done a lot harder work, I'll tell you, with the soil. So I say till it once, disturb it once, do what you're going to do. But this is after years of layering stuff in here. This is why I have all this black dirt. So I did no-till, and I definitely think the plow makes deserts. I don't like the plow. I would not till anything every year. So, but that tiller is your friend, and you can afford it, and it's going to it'll help prevent having to bring in more expensive equipment. Bigger equipment's expensive to maintain if you own it. It's expensive to run, and it's definitely expensive to hire people to come in and rent it to you or come and operate it for you. That's a lot of money. That tiller will pay for itself in no time. So I say go for it. Don't listen to what they say. All right, I got my beds done. I raked them over with a smaller rake, and I just gorilla seeded basically scarlet Nantes, carrots, sprouting onions, giant noble spinach, broccoli, Waltham 29, and cilantro. Country Creek Acres, do not buy from them. It's all holes. They sell you a pound of seed, and it's 2/3 holes. What a scam. So here's the picture of my beds. Raked over again, leveled out, seeded in. I haven't watered them yet. Getting ready to water them in, and I put all those seeds in all those beds. We'll just let the seeds work it out for themselves and see what we ever get. It's going to give you a tip. When you're seeding like this, you're not going to say seed's too expensive. Just buy sprouting seeds. eBay, Amazon, whatever. Buy a pound. Buy them by the pound. A lot of them are just familiar varieties of vegetables, and it's just an affordable way to do, because it's time. Going through all this time, you know, take care of them in the greenhouse, harden them off, get them out here, and then they struggle when they start, and just put the seeds in. Some of this is probably a little late, late March, zone 7, but we'll see. We'll see what we get. So I'll just keep you updated video wise. I wanted to talk to you about cover crops, winter cover crops. And weeds. What are the worst weeds of all time? Grass. Grass is great, but you don't want it in your garden. It's the worst thing to fight. What is not a weed is that dandelion. It's good stuff. Actually, this entire carpet of everything you see here, good stuff. Here's a little ladybug, little lady beetle. Everything here is actually edible. You can everything I pretty much see in sight is edible. Common vetch. This is a nitrifier. It's a legume. You can actually eat the little pods. They look like little pea pods. You can actually eat those. Dead nettle's edible. Regular chickweed is edible. Lance leaf plantain. It's called, forgot the other name for it. Then you saw the dandelion over there. There's henbit in here, just not right here. At this specific spot. So anyway, a lot of this, it's keeping the grass out, it's keeping the seeds that are blowing in from all over the place, keeping it from taking root, bringing a lot of biomass. When it gets hot, most of this will die off, even including the vetch will die off last, really. My plan for this is tomatoes and peppers, which are still being sprouted in the greenhouse, or still little seedlings. So I'm going to leave this ground cover, and then I'm going to poke holes in it when it's time and just put the stuff in. And then this will die back to mulch as the other plants come up. Part of my strategy. This is pretty much 100% edible. And it's self-sowing annuals. All this stuff comes back on its own. If you just let it do its thing, don't get all picky about it. Just let it grow. Let it die back. There's plenty of food here. If you get hungry, if it's a famine, you can come out here and have plenty of nutrition. Not a lot of calories, but a lot of vitamins and minerals. It could help balance out your diet if you're living on rice and beans or whatever, oatmeal and the grains. You know, there's only so much nutrition, and you get a lot of carbs out of that stuff, but not a lot of nutrition. So this would definitely back that up. Most people don't even recognize this as food. So this is the kind of cover crops I like. They're doing their thing, and you can see over here at that pile, not much of a cameraman here. See how those roots are hanging down on that chickweed? Deep-rooted it, more deep-rooted than you might think for just an annual. Tip about moving the hay bales. I had a hay bale like that. That's flipped the wrong way, but the way I had it flipped, I just start pulling the hay across the top, like pulling a line. Just kind of roll it and then peel back the layers and just keep kind of pulling, cutting down through it. See, and then you have that middle core left. I flipped that middle core out of the way, and now I just have layers of hay. I can pick up these big giant layers of hay and just carry them and put them where I want them. It saves a lot of time. So that's a way to unroll a bale of hay by hand. That's a big 5x4. And if you remember, this mound was a lot higher. It doesn't look so high now. I really built these beds up. I'm going to get this watered in, and we'll see how it grows, and I'll be back with you later. Well, while I'm waiting on my water to get here, and it's making its way, I had forgot to mention about raised beds. Everybody goes to all this trouble, all this expense. You make it out of wood, it rots. Concrete is pretty good. It's useful. Rock is useful. Old logs from the forest. There's different ways of doing it. All of them have their pros and cons and different amounts of expense and labor involved. I don't use any of that. I just make piles I'm not on real sandy soil, so I'm on clay, so it holds back a lot of water. Not a lot of negatives to it. The sides kind of melt on me over time. These beds, these are 8-10 inch beds here, and I have no structure to them whatsoever. So I suggest thinking about just making piles of dirt. You want to raise the beds, just do this. Save some money, save some time. We'll be building some beds like these. They need some kind of structure. I use cedar logs, but your whole garden doesn't necessarily have to be like that. And I'm not against raised beds at all, but in the right context. So maybe consider doing some of your garden with no raised beds. And we'll just see how this works out. I'll keep you updated. Alright, I'm out in the big greenhouse. Kind of a mess. Here's some of my tomatoes and peppers and such little seedlings. Been ravaged by the chickens once. This bed is where I'm going to be putting the corn when I get it all cleaned out. We've been using this kind of as a patio during the winter, play games and such. Just sit out here and get sun. It's nice and warm out here. I moved my corn into here on this shelf, and here's our first little cornling right there. Yukon chief cornling. So we'll see how all this goes. It's going to go in these beds, and we'll take some of that plastic off and get a fan going, and we'll see how our sweet corn does. Also let the chicks out long past due. They've been in a little brooder room, so now I open the door to let them run around out here. The hens like to come in here and lay. There's other places for them, but they like to come in here and lay. So we have eggs coming out of our ears right now. Cannot keep up with them. If in the area need eggs, let me know. I'm sure we can work something out. So that's it for now.